As US gasoline prices surge to the highest level on record amid rampant inflation, some drivers are now rationing themselves.
I'm actually just filling up enough to get home because it's a little pricey.
Compare that with 1974, when a worldwide shortage meant gas was forcibly rationed, and you can see why, for some, 2022 is starting to resemble that era. This was the last inflation crisis whose seeds were sown in the 1960s through a mixture of massive government spending on the Vietnam War and expansionary monetary policy that accelerated price rises. President Gerald Ford tried to contain them with a catchy slogan.
We must whip inflation right now.
Before his successor Jimmy Carter urged Americans to save on heating in what was dubbed his fireside chat.
Simply by keeping our thermostats, for instance, at 65 degrees in the daytime and 55 degrees at night, we could save half the current shortage of natural gas.
But neither Ford's Whip Inflation Now campaign nor Carter's cardigan-clad plea to save energy succeeded. In 1974, inflation hit 11.1%, and in 1980, it topped out at 13.5%. Coupled with high oil prices and uneven growth, this period of economic stagnation and persistent inflation became known as stagflation. And for some, the signs of a fresh stagflation crisis are already visible. Economic growth forecasts are being repeatedly slashed as the Federal Reserve is forced to aggressively hike its benchmark interest rate to tame inflation of at least 8%, a figure that's risen along with the electorate's temper.
I can understand why the American people are frustrated because of inflation.
The previous US stagflation crisis ended only when the Fed jacked up that benchmark rate to nearly 20% in 1981. And that contributed to what was then the worst recession since the Great Depression, partly because it made the cost of just about any kind of credit so exorbitant.
In 1960, mortgage interest rates averaged about 6%. They're 2.5 times as high now, 15.4%.
And while the Fed plans to limit its rate rise to around 3.5% by the end of this year, some experts are now concerned history is repeating itself, with the US teetering on the brink of a new recession. Owen Fairclough, CGTN, Washington.